Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. Ryan abruptly cutting off our intro. But we also have a lot of AEW to talk about because it's all in week, baby. All three of us are here. Any of us are here. That's a nice, refreshing change of pace. We got some of us in the house, much less all of us in the house. It's me.
Shocked.
It's the fellas. We got you covered, but leave a thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, or I am gonna have to have a stern talking to with you, your family, your loved ones, parents, friends, imaginary
family.
friends, whatever. So if you don't subscribe, just know a lecture is coming your way. Danny Tanner style, the full 9 yards. You're going to get some emotional music in the background. Lots of tears. Lots happening. But not a lot of tears for this AEW All-In build. I got some thoughts on that ending segment, but we're going to talk about all of it here. Fellas, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. How we doing, Joe? Let's start with you because I like you better.
Well, thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
You know, it's going well. I survived the 4th of July weekend.
He lived.
I am a proud Casa Bonita Founders Club member card holder. So I'm the real founding father now. I have my little.
I've never been more jealous of anyone about anything in my life.
Now I have those numbers though, Joe.
Ooh, you're gonna get like a 10% discount at the store.
Ooh.
You never know what I'm gonna do.
Never know. You
Casa
never
Bonita.
ever know. Ryan, or should I say, Ryan, who has family in town from Ireland. How are you doing? How was your July 4th? Did you also live, or are you weekend at Bernie's in it right now?
I'm a vampire.
Oh, sick.
So,
The most I've ever liked you.
Wow, that hurts.
Most interesting facts I've ever heard about you.
That hurts. They're all taking shots at us for missing last week. I want to point out in the chat, and that was not my fault.
It was all of our faults because none of us were here, and we all decided last minute. But I had a dog emergency. Ryan had family in town. Joe couldn't make it because he has life more than any of us, which is just upsetting. So we did miss last week, but we're back. We're back. We are in full gear, but we are talking about the build to All In. So there you go. It's a little AEW pay-per-view wordplay for y'all. Hi to Pieces. Hi to Big G. Hi to Scott George. Hi to Taylor Cannon, who's awesome. Lord Kev, who's always helping us out, retweeting stuff. Fellas, it's the go home to All In. Normally we banter a little more than we have so far, but we got a lot to get to tonight. Let's talk about overall thoughts on the build to All In. And I'm not going to go through match by match, but if you guys want to weigh in on who you think is gonna win certain things, and if you think there's gonna be any Casino Gauntlet surprises, some returns. There's a lot of people still out with injury. What intrigues me about this is the people I would peg for the Casino Gauntlet. I'm like, it also feels like a lot of those people could be showing up in the main event now that this is Texas Death. So, like, do you have Darby come back in the Casino Gauntlet to also come back in the main event? I don't think so. So I feel like that pool is going to be spread a little bit thin. Certainly an Alex Windsor or a Dakota Kai or something I think is possible on the women's side. I'm hoping that women's gauntlet has more juice than the last one. And I think it would be interesting if the men's one was shorter. Like if they went with the shortest men's Casino Gauntlet ever. That could be really interesting. And like a stymied MJF could get really upset that he couldn't beat anybody when there's
Yes.
only like 3 people or whatever. So I think there's actually a lot of fun possibilities with that. But we're arriving here. To me, Hangman's got to win. I think you have Tony Storm win. I think it's time to have Mercedes unravel a little bit here. And I don't know who wins the women's gauntlet. I think like a Chris Statlander might be a good call if it's not somebody new. If it is somebody new, maybe a debuting Dakota Kai would be a fun way just to introduce someone to the roster immediately. But other than that, like Eddie Kingston, Darby Allin, Sting, Bryan Danielson, like Darby Allin, Juice Robinson. The Guns have been not around that much. Like there are so many people that have been kind of either not being utilized right now, which I'm okay with from a talent rotation perspective, or have been injured and might be ready to come back. Like people we've heard are close. So I'm really intrigued to see how some of this stuff shakes out. But I'm gonna start with Ryan. What are your thoughts kind of on what we've had overall? Kenny and Okada, I didn't even mention. My God, that's like one of the most historic matches that's going to be taking place in the world. That has some intrigue because they're in Canada for All Out. So
I was gonna say no, they're in Texas, Kate. Let's get this right.
no, for All Out, I meant. Which by the way has sold like 8,500 of their 10,000 tickets already with nothing, like not even. There's 2 shows between now and then. So that's just really, really encouraging to see. But Ryan, thoughts on the card overall and any surprises that we might get? Maybe some non-booking surprises, anything that you need to see happen? What you got?
So I like the idea that they're starting to do pay-per-views in places where they can have nicknames like Y'all In or All Oot, like you just did. That's a great thing to do. I liked your original idea for the women's gauntlet, which was to have Athena lose her title the night before and then have her not debut, but her show up in the gauntlet and win it, propelling her instantly into that next stratosphere of like, this is where I am. So I'm sticking with that. Like that was my favorite idea anyone came up with. So I want that. Though you probably will see Alex Windsor
Yes.
debut. Dakota Kai would be fun, but you're right. The only thing, it'd be a good place to debut someone like her who could be a surprise, but doesn't have to win because she doesn't take the pin. She's there. I have no idea for the men's. I'm with you. I kind of hope it's like the quickest one they've ever done, just because it would be interesting to be like, holy crap. But that's not what they're going to do. They have to fill those pay-per-view hours up. So that's going to be a 20-minute match minimum. Looking at, obviously Okada, Omega. I don't even know I really don't know who's going to win that one. That's a toss up to me, but it's going to probably be the match of the night.
Sure.
I think Darby comes out during the main event. He's what evens out things so that Hangman can win, which then vaults Darby into his own feud with Moxley, but no title now.
Sure.
So you shed that story of the title, which frees it up, but you get to go tell Moxley and Darby's story on their own. So that's, it's a stacked card. We'll talk about tonight. Tony Storm versus Mercedes, I'm super hyped on. I think that's going to be awesome.
Me too.
I think this is going to be a really fun pay-per-view. I'm just wondering how they're going to get us from 3 p.m. to midnight. That's going to be a long, long pay-per-view.
Well, they said they're going to be out by 8. Like they were very clear when WWE decided to counter program that they're not curtailing to like what WWE is doing, but they were like, well, we're also not trying to like flex. Like, so that seems like a good idea. This card is thinner than normal AEW pay-per-views, but normal AEW pay-per-views have like between 10 to 14 matches, usually closer to the 14 end. One thing we haven't talked a lot about that I think has the chance to be a sleeper, and I want Joe's thoughts on this. We have Kyle Fletcher versus Adam Cole, baby. And because the nature of the TNT title is what it is, like Adam Cole hasn't been highlighted a whole heck of a lot, and they, for whatever reason, insist on putting the TNT belt in trios feuds quite often. But he's been doing some really good work. He had some good stuff with Daniel Garcia. That's when it felt like the Adam Cole of yore was back, like after his extensive injuries. Great match against Josh Alexander. I think it's still Kyle Fletcher's time, but like that one kind of snuck up on me as something that's going to be on this card. I think the Callis family needs some sort of gold, and you also have Takeshita going away for the G1 sooner than later. So I think Kyle Fletcher winning is absolutely the right call because that dude just is the future of this company. But I feel like that one is going to be slept on, and I think that match actually has the potential to really, really blow us away because Cole feels like he's back in the form that we know and recognize, and Kyle Fletcher has just been one of the young bests in the industry of late. So specifically, I want your thoughts on that, but also same deal. Any surprises that you think might sneak up? Any booking must-haves? What do you think?
With the Cole and Fletcher, I agree with you that Fletcher needs to win, and hopefully maybe that's a catalyst for maybe getting Cole back to more of a heel.
Yeah, I think so
him
too.
And him and Paragon, they're just kind of stale right now. There's something missing. I think they need to be a heel faction or Adam Cole go heel. Something has to change there. The Okada-Kenny match, I'm feeling like Okada should win just due to the fact of I think the Bucks are going to lose. I think Moxley's going to lose, so you need that heel to win. And Okada being a unified champion sounds fun.
Sure.
So I'm not mad at that. And then as far as the gauntlet, for the men's gauntlet, maybe it'd be nice. Maybe they can find a way to work Wardlow back in, even for just a gauntlet appearance, just so we have that Wardlow MJF payoff finally a little bit.
I would love to see that. I know he's got American Gladiators coming on, but I would love to see Wardlow. I think that would be a surprise that maybe isn't on a lot of people's radar. I know Keith Lee is someone that was being talked about quite a bit too, of like, remember that guy who hasn't been around in a little bit might be a fun one. So we will see, but I like your call of Wardlow and getting something going with MJF there. That could be fun, and him in a casino gauntlet would just be, I think, a fun guy in that formula for sure. Heading into All In, feels like it's been a very good year for AEW overall. I think there's a lot of people that felt like it was a really rough end in 2024. I think a lot of people feel like they've really bailed themselves out, and it's been a gradual process. And a lot of people for a long time, I feel like for months, felt like everything is great except the Death Riders. And I feel like from clearing the Swerve feud on and those kind of weird moments where they were retconning things with the Young Bucks, like the Samoa Joe stuff was good. The promos have been better. The mission has been clearer. The history with Mox and Hangman is so compelling. Like there's a lot of things that have improved drastically about the Death Riders. It is still so Hangman's time. Like there's no doubt about it. The thing that would be productive to do with the Death Riders is now to have them go away. But Joe, you kind of mentioned it, like the EVP ship for the Young Bucks is on the line. Feels like the Death Riders kind of as a unit is on the line in a sense here, because I don't think they just go back to like, well, we're a trio now after Moxley loses. So kind of all of the umbrella angles that didn't really work in 2024, they at least are trying to pay off in 2025 here. I do give them credit for that, because I don't know if we'll ever find out what was in the briefcase, but the way that they kind of backed into this working relationship with the Bucks and Moxley, I think is interesting. What are your expectations? We'll start with Joe and then go right to Riot on this. What are your expectations for the main event? Because I have a feeling it's going to be similar to almost like Bloodline Rules was on the WWE side of like, all these baby faces are going to come to the aid of Hangman. If Eddie Kingston can do anything, I think he's running off Gabe Kidd. If Bryan Danielson can do anything, which we know he can because he's been back, I think he's running off Wheeler Yuta. I think there's going to be answers to everybody and everything at this event. But I think ultimately everyone feels like the story is like Swerve coming out to acknowledge Hangman in some way. But I think it's Big Boom AJ. I think the real hero of all of AEW is probably the Costco guy. So I think he comes out, he shakes Hangman's hand, maybe like gives him a nod, and then with the boom, I think he's able to do it. But I do like that they've kept Swerve and Hangman apart, even though they are on the same side of things. I think that's been very, very good in the storytelling. What are you expecting from this main event? I'm assuming it's going to be overbooked, but really, really fun.
Yeah, I'm expecting a 47-minute match of clusterfuckery of shenanigans and interference and anything goes, because that's kind of what the announce team has laid out for people to respect, reminding people that anything can happen. There's no disqualification. And I think that'd be a good payoff to this Death Riders thing, with where they started to where they're at now, as far as all the people who kind of fell to the wayside due to them. So yeah, I think you have Darby, you have Sting, you have Danielson, especially with the plastic bag callback tonight. And then I think Swerve comes out to be the final part to help Heyman get the win and give him that nod of approval. I think that's kind of what we see tonight. Maybe the Bloodline rules match, but a little bit more violent.
I like that. I like the idea that, because it is. I love that they're calling it Texas Death and not a Texas Death Match. I don't know why, but it sounds just more vicious that way. But yeah, I think the opportunities for people to get involved, instead of just like, here's a nostalgia pack of a guy that's mostly just standing there, could get more interesting, because there is a level of violence with the Death Riders that isn't there in WWE at all, because that's just not the way that they do things. But Ryan, what are you expecting from this main event?
Shenanigans.
Okay.
Lots and lots of shenanigans and tomfoolery.
I expect you to say hi to Jesse Ozog.
No, I'll say hi to Kylie, though. And
hi,
2LT
Kylie.
Photo.
Hi, Jesse Ozog.
And
hi,
Lauren, who was in commenting a little earlier. So I'll say hi to those people. But no, this is, you guys, I mean, it is funny that there was a Bloodline Rules match, former Shield member, and now there's the Death Rider style match, which is a former Shield member. It's like they got together and were like, we're just going to have the same style match.
And now Seth Rollins is like, they're not going to do a Bloodline Rules match, but he also has this faction that's going to be overbooked to shit. And like constantly causing DQs. I was like, what is it in the Shield lore that makes every one of these guys have to have a faction that's
like grew up in a faction? They're like, this is what we believe in. This is what we want.
That's it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a clusterfuck. Someone said it. Oh no, Jesse said fuster cluckery. I'll give him that. Oh, sorry, Greg. We're going back like a bunch. And hi, Greg. See, I got you eventually. If it ends with Hangman winning, I'm okay with it. If it's any other outcome, I'm leaving with the wrong kind of anger.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of people felt that way when he faced Swerve. And so I think it's going to feel 10 times that if it's at their biggest show of the year in this. I do feel like this is a fan service show. Like that feels very much like the vibe of what we're going to get here. So I would expect that. And there's going to be a lot of feel good stuff. Like if Sting, Darby, and Bryan Danielson at minimum come back, people are going to be losing their freaking minds. My concern is with the Casino Gauntlets. Is it going to feel too crowded? Like, is it going to be too much? Like, there were surprises and debuts and pops in this match and this one. Like, one women's Casino Gauntlet, a men's Casino Gauntlet, and your main event. I think as long as they're spaced out appropriately and the Casino Gauntlets are too long, you're probably in good shape. You're probably
you can't do one right after the other. It'll be like, then we'll be burnt out by that point.
Yes, I agree. I agree, but I think that's some. Oh yeah, go for it.
Talking about facing out matches, what match do you open a card with?
Man, that was something I was thinking about. I'm wondering if they start with Tony and Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tony Mercedes or the Gauntlet, or the men's Gauntlet.
Yeah, I think Gauntlet is a fun way to open it, but I do think you're gonna have some returns and surprises, so you might want to sprinkle them in of like Mercedes and Tony, Cole and Fletcher, women's one, and then tag match, men's one, Okada Kenny main event or whatever. Like I think those are nice and breaking stuff up along the way. But I hear what you're saying too, of like that's just a fun way to start a show. I feel like Mercedes and Tony have all the juice you need to main event a show, but obviously that's not going to be the case because you have literally one of the most historic matches in the world with Kenny and Okada, and you also have this main event that's going to be so overwrought and a huge payoff to a major story with the most beloved babyface in the company. So I feel like if you can't have them main events, and you kind of can't even really do a co-main event because you have Kenny and Okada, which is just insane. Having them open feels like the right call to give them the respect they deserve. And I also think a lot of people assume that Mercedes is winning, and I don't. And I feel like there's actually some uncertainty after tonight about who's winning, which I like. And I think they want to capitalize on that. So we'll see. Any other thoughts, fellas? Any other thoughts as we lead into All In here?
Are you excited for the ROH Supercard of Honor?
I actually am, because those always show out. They don't give a shit about this product, but I'm like, am I excited to see Athena and Thunder Rosa tear it down? Hell yeah, I am. But I won't pretend that I'm invested in the product anymore. I haven't really watched it all that much until like after I stopped reviewing it. I do sincerely hope that the infantry go over, though. I would really like it if Shane Taylor Promotions actually got to win something at some point. But yeah. Well, with that, then, what we will do is head into our commercial break that highlights and features some of the other fantastic shows that are on the Shining Wizards Network. What's the Shining Wizards Network, you might ask? Why, that was a network started by the flagship show of the Shining Wizards, who I was on Monday to talk some All In, actually. And yeah, they got a lot going on. They got some shuffling of hosts. They've got some interviews. Busy boys over there. Inappropriate comments. We have a great time chopping it up. But it's not just them. There's plenty more. And we're going to tell you all about it right now.
Okay, so I put the overlay on, and I scroll down. It's all different now. They changed this whole thing, and I hit play. Oh, guys, turn off the volume.
Every Monday night to listen to The Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is The Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the Squared Circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcast, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
If you like your music heavy, then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, we've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is Radioactive Metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway.
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums,
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at Mark Order Pod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
We will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down under pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Your Duke and Rope podcast. They're funny guys. I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, to Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast with two men, Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right? And who better to talk about a man's sport than Duke? Oklahoma.
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Whoa, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the Your Duke and Rope podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit. Slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, we are back. And I just want to say, eat shit, bitches, because that's what Toni Storm said today in her promo. And I feel like we should be able to get to say that more often, but we also have more people joining us. Pieces is around. We got LaRon, we've got Trey. We just want to say thank you to all y'all who are hanging out with us on this go home to All In. Let's talk about how we started, because I am salivating for this Mercedes Moné Toni Storm match. I am so excited for it, but we've got this red carpet style situation going on. Toni appearing on screen quick before coming out with Luther. And this escalated quickly. This really got out of hand fast, in the words of the great Ron Burgundy. But Toni Storm said Mercedes Moné is a fraud with the emotional depth of a kiddie pool. Monet says that she is the alpha and the omega and vowed to outclass Toni. We have a toast of champagne and Toni Storm saying eat shit, bitch, at the end of this. There was I can't tell if this was a mistake or an issue of poor delivery, because Mercedes Moné says that on Saturday, she's going to prove that she's the better woman. And the way she made that mistake felt like she said it intentionally. And I didn't know if that was like a wink and a nod at the fact that Evolution has been a fucking disaster of a build on the WWE side. Or if it was an authentic mistake, but she sounded so controlled in her delivery. It's not like she flubbed it. So that was just kicking around in my mind. And I saw a couple other people saying that too, of like, was that a mistake though? But Toni Storm is just... I keep like waiting for, and not in a way that I'm rooting for it to go bad, but I just can't believe how sustainable this has been, considering she is a woman that was champion, lost her title, had a mental break and thought she was a movie star from like the 40s and 50s. And that was like 2.5 years ago at this point, you guys. Like it's nuts that this continues to work. And I'm like, at some point, the shininess is going to wear off. And then she does what she did tonight. And that's fucking nuts. Like, she is so damn good at this. So damn good at this. And from an in-ring perspective, because of the way that Toni wrestles, and especially because of the way Mercedes wrestles, but specifically her selling, and the way that they've built to this match, I am ready for the shit. I cannot wait to see what we get out of it. I'm going to say that Toni Storm wins this. This one I feel like is up in the air a little bit, but I do feel like it's time to pull the thread that makes Mercedes unravel, if that makes sense. Joe, let's start with you on this one. What did you think of our opening segment here, and do you think that Ryan needs to eat shit, bitch?
Of course.
This runs like a coward.
It's a part of.
Why did Ryan pull me off screen like that? That was crazy.
How dare you?
I like the opening promo between the two. I like that this rivalry has heated up week by week, and I'm hoping that this is just a first of a trilogy of matches between them. I like the fact that Toni is attacking Mercedes' insecurity, and I thought Mercedes did a really nice job with her facial expressions. Feeling like she's afraid of dying an ordinary life, and Tony's afraid of dying an ordinary death. I thought that was really great. Tony's delivery was just great with her lines. And I think Toni can win. I think, like you said earlier in the show, that Mercedes starts her downfall. But yeah, Mercedes, all she was missing was, mentioning that she's not only the alpha and the omega, she's also the ultimo. And she is also in control of her destiny. That would have been a fun little nod. But otherwise, yeah, I'm excited for the match.
I thought that was all fantastic. Like, just the illusion that, like, yes, idiots, I'm on a belt collector run, veiled, was a really nicely done piece of work. I love that the Mercedes Moné character has been polarizing for a lot of people, and I get that people don't love her style with it. But in this particular story, we've gotten to see a lot more of her vulnerability and a lot less of the like flash about her. And I think that's by design. I think this is, whether she wins or loses, we're supposed to believe that this is the most affable she's ever been. And because, Ryan, we had stuff like Tony Storm saying, like, you deserve all those belts, sweetheart, but this is the one that matters and it's mine and you're not getting it. Like, her continued emphasis on that, I think, has been, for me, something that has made this feud of Tony being like, I don't give a shit about any of the belts you have. I give a shit about this belt and you're not getting it. She's been so brilliant in this, but I like the vulnerability that's come out of this with Mercedes as well. How are you feeling about this feud, and are you as excited for the match as I am? Because I am pumped, buddy.
Only 2 things come from Texas, and I'm certainly one of them. Jesus Christ. You guys said a lot of it. Mercedes has been more vulnerable, which I think has helped her tremendously. It also has... I know it feels almost like I'm blanking on the word that I know would, but like they're kind of going back and correcting some stuff, but it's making her using catchphrases and speaking in a certain cadence make more sense in general when you're almost seeing it as a facade, when someone comes in and kind of calls you out on it, being like, this isn't really a real thing. I don't know how Tony keeps working, but she does. She is tremendous. The only thing I could think of, by the way, if Athena not winning the women's Casino Gauntlet is if Mercedes loses to Tony and then Athena challenges Mercedes for the TBS.
Sure,
and takes it from her to continue the unraveling.
Certainly a possibility. Certainly, like, if you have a Willow or a Chris Statlander win, I'm not going to be mad if you give me Tony Storm versus Chris Statlander. I'm not going to be mad if you have, and those are just the names that I'm pulling off the top of my head because I feel like they're the most of the like next up crew to be in that world title picture. But I would love if Athena was the one to take the TNT or the TBS title from Mercedes. And part of why I think Tony goes over here is the season that we have around the corner. Like, she just won the CMLL title. She could drop that at Forbidden Door, right? Like, she could drop the Rev Pro belts at Forbidden Door in England. Like, there are so many possibilities because of the sprint that we have coming up next that, like, I feel like now is the time for her to maybe unravel. So I like that there's intrigue around the Casino Gauntlet. And I also like that there's going to be some debuts. Like, if you just have Alex Windsor show up and win it, I'm not mad at that because maybe she faces Tony Storm at Forbidden Door in England. Like, that's a huge deal for her, right? So I think the intrigue around all of that is good, but for it to work, I think Mercedes has to start the losing process now. But I'm with you. Like, if it ain't Athena, her going after the TBS title would be super, super fun. Well, all right, bitches. Let's keep talking about this episode of Dynamite. This is good, though. I like having a women's feud because they centralized both belts to one feud, right? That's always a risk, but like, this feels hot. This feels like the biggest women's in-ring wrestler versus the biggest star all around in AEW facing each other. Like, I like that. I like that quite a bit. Let's start with our first match, and we'll circle back to this Moxley promo because I like it, but we'll save that for the end here. Let's talk Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher versus Bandito and Brody King because holy shit, was this fun. When tag wrestling can be this, why is it like the Hurt Syndicate took out the guns? Like, come on, man, let us see more of this. But this match was a blast. We know what Takeshita and Fletcher do, right? And we know that Bandito has been on this heater, especially since AEW Grand Slam in Mexico. But I just love seeing these reactions for Brody King because it feels like Brody King is over because he's a badass who beats the tar out of people and is huge and people just like him. Like, I love when wrestlers are just over just because of who they are. Bandito's 450 splashes were like poetry here. And I love the power spots from Brody. The cannonball is always impressive. The boss man slam is always impressive. But Takeshita with the raging fire jumping knee strike on Bandito for the win in this. I had a blast watching this. Feels like on AEW go-homes, sometimes they're like, we're just going to empty the well of this one of some really fun in-ring. And I like that their go-homes have quite a bit of wrestling on it. Like, that's very refreshing to me. Ryan, we'll start with you here. What did you think of our tag match?
I shouldn't have been surprised by how much I liked it because all the guys in it are great. But I guess I just didn't, for whatever reason, Bandito and Brody King, just for whatever, to me, didn't mix in my head, even though they've been doing stuff together. I still can't quite place them. But It was awesome. Their styles really worked well together. I actually thought they were going to have the win at them for a little bit there. Like, I thought maybe this is how they start establishing them as their own thing. Brody King there's always, and these guys can eventually become main eventers, but every generation of wrestling has that one guy who's like, you always believe he could be put in any match and you believe he could win, even though he never does.
Yeah. One thing I liked about this is because Bandito and Takeshita have the ROH world title match at the pay-per-view. And I'm like, oh, if Kyle Fletcher wins and Brody King gets like to have a feud with Kyle Fletcher, like if Brody King gets a proper singles feud and the guy it's against is Kyle Fletcher, and this is kind of the foreshadowing of that, sign me up for that, because that's also a different type of test than we've seen Kyle Fletcher go through too. Like, he hasn't faced a lot of guys like Brody King because there just ain't a lot of guys like Brody King. But Joe, what did you think of the match? And would that be something you would want to see in the mid card? I feel like it would be great for Brody to get on some sort of track here.
That would be a dream. I think that's what a lot of people would want to see Brody to have a little bit of a mid-card, mid-title run. Worst case scenario, pair him up with Bandito and have them be a tag team full time, because this match was fun and they just complement each other so well. Hell, I mean, Brody could wrestle in his ski mask and be a luchador.
I think you forget how much respect AEW has for the ROH title. Like, they don't just throw guys in programs when they have that. You know what I mean?
They would never.
Never have done it.
The one thing I had a question was, knowing that Bandito and Takeshita have that match coming up, it was interesting that they had Takeshita pin Bandito clean for this match. And I get that Bandito probably needs to win at the ROH show just because Takeshita is going to be busy. But it was just an odd choice to have a clean pin between the two guys who are going to be fighting over a belt in 2 days.
Yeah, I understand that too. That was kind of a weird choice, but they don't care about ROH, so it is what it is. I also feel like with Takeshita, they're like, let's just put him in banger matches because he's going to go to the G1. And I have a feeling, looking at the blocks this year, like, I keep forgetting because Takeshita's on AEW TV pretty regularly. He's signed to New Japan too. Like, he has 3 contracts, I think. So Takeshita probably is going to have a pretty legitimate run there. So I don't think they're worried about like protecting him all that much, because I think he's going to be absent for a while and come back in a real way. Maybe Kyle Fletcher wins the title and Takeshita comes back and the Don Callis family gets a little spicy. We will see. We will see. But fun possibility is all around on that. Let's talk. Let's skip ahead a little bit, actually. Let's talk some Mark Briscoe and MJF, because, oh boy, this was a lot. I actually really liked it. There were a lot of people that feel like MJF went too far. But, like, with the things that he said in this, I don't have any doubt that that guy would have gotten, like, several layers of approval to say what he said tonight. And I also feel like Mark Briscoe is the kind of guy that would absolutely allow someone to say certain things to properly get heat. And it works, is the thing. Like, there's a reason MJF goes to this well, and it's because it works. Mark Briscoe was very, very over by the end of this segment. And MJF was getting booed brutally, as he should have been, but I actually liked it. And let's get into it a little bit. MJF is doing his usual mocking Mark Briscoe's background. He talks about him having 95 inbred kids, which the inbred stuff, whatever. But Ryan and I know from experience, because we've been seated near them, and I've been seated near the Briscoe clan twice. 95 is not that hyperbolic. It's like plus or minus 10 kids. There are a lot of Briscoes. I don't think they're all his, but like there's a lot of Briscoes running around at shows. But what I love about this feud so far is you have a guy who they're just antitheses of each other. Like they are, MJF is the cocky heel, suited up, rich guy, whatever. And you have the underdog, but total badass babyface of Mark Briscoe, who stylistically is the opposite of MJF, as well as a guy who says, I'm proud to be a redneck. I'm proud to have earned every single dollar that I ever had in my pocket. Kind of feels very Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair to me. Like it really was starting to give me shades of a modern day Hard Times guy versus a modern day Ric Flair, minus the being sexually real fucking weird stuff. Like I really like how just like babyface heel this all was. Mark calls MJF morally bankrupt before tackling him in this. But the nuance that I liked in this is the nuance that people felt like went too far, where Mark Briscoe says, I know your shtick, kid. And I love that because he's far more a veteran than MJF. And he says, you're gonna use my brother as a cheap shot. You're gonna make fun of him. You're gonna talk about how he sucked and all this. And MJF turns the tables and says, your brother was one of the very best wrestlers to ever do this. Like, no, I'm not gonna mock him. He is one of the most successful, like historic wrestlers of all time. And he's left a legacy that won't be forgotten. But he says, and he is up in heaven looking down, ashamed of what you've become. And he says that he knows that if he was here today, he would say that he wished it was Mark in that car accident and not him, which is the button that sends Mark Briscoe off. We see him backstage later and he is completely snapped. Like the charming stream of consciousness that we normally get from Mark Briscoe is just all fired up. And he's like, I'm going to win that casino gauntlet. It's going down. We do get a Jet Speed attacking the Hurt Syndicate angle after here, which we'll dive into a little bit more. But this was kind of controversial. But for me, it worked. I really liked this. I understand why people wouldn't. But Ryan, your thoughts?
You have like a pause there?
Did it? My mic's being a little bit weird.
I think the only reason, not the only reason, obviously I'm with you. I think MJF got this pre-approved. I think Mark Briscoe was okay with it being because it was very complimentary towards Jay. It wasn't a shot at Jay at all, which is the right way to do it. You don't take a shot at that guy. You use it to, if you're going to do it, you leverage towards the brother. It was all done in, I think, in a very, I'm assuming a very good way. I think he went and, did it. I'm assuming because he's, from what I read, I think from Fightful, MJF is the one who wanted the feud with Briscoe. So like, I'm going to assume he's doing it the proper way. It's made me interested in a match I had no interest in. I'm going to tell you that. Like, okay, they kind of came up out of nowhere. And again, I'm not saying like they needed this, but they kind of needed something for me to understand why this was a pay-per-view match.
Right.
Like, a random Dynamite feud I was all about. Like, I'm okay with that. But I'm like, out of nowhere, I'm like, why is this on pay-per-view? Like, this kind of came up out of nowhere. It's kind of doing its own thing. It's like, well, at least now they've made it personal. Because it's not even like there is a and I understand they're in the gauntlet, so like there's a whole thing about that. But still, why are they making their feud on a pay-per-view? Like, but I like it. They made it personal, and MJF is this is when MJF is good. When
I agree.
Like when he's using cheap stuff, but in a very real way. But yeah, I needed this because I didn't understand why for a casino match this was the focus, because it really is the only truly focused feud of the casino match. So to me, it's like, why are these two? Why is there a feud, the pay-per-view feud? Why is it not MJF versus someone else? Why is it? So I'm glad they finally made something personal about it.
I agree, and I think there were a lot of people that assumed we were getting a match between MJF and Mystico. I'm assuming now that's probably saved for Forbidden Door. So that's fine, but I think a lot of people were like, with the way that ended at Grand Slam, they assumed it was going to go the other way. So the chat pointing out that Renee was absolutely corpsing at the Mark Briscoe, like just losing his mind aspect. I agree with what Ryan said, and Joe, we'll flip it to you here. Like, MJF used the lowbrow stuff, but then he kind of elevated that when he was like, no, it's not that I don't have respect for Jay. And then he just kind of like turned that, like Mark Briscoe said, I know what you're going to do, so I'm comfortable and I'm emotionally prepared for the things you're going to say. And MJF was like, no, you're not. I'm going to take it way further than you thought I was. What did you think of what we got here? I feel like everything else felt kind of long in this feud, but this segment was the one that like drove it home for me tonight.
Yeah, and I think we probably saw this type of promo happening when they advertised the Talkie Talk about, like, you knew some part of Jay was going to be brought up to try to, get after Mark. So, but to both of your guys' points, I like the fact that they kind of turned it upside down and took that low-hanging fruit and used it in a different way. So I appreciate that part. I think there was a mention of MJF's soul, so if we can not talk about souls in wrestling anymore, that'd be good. And then
he's gonna sell it.
The only other thing was that I loved how just the serious nature of Briscoe in the ring during this talk, and then his reaction. But then I felt like we got kind of the unhinged, crazy, let's laugh at how wild Briscoe is in the backstage. It felt like there's a different energy than what I had in the ring with him.
I agree. I like the way that you said that. This feels productive because Mark Briscoe is very over too. And like, if MJF is going to use his time to catapult him up to the next level, where it's not just like everybody loves him and he loses a bunch, like, to give him meaningful losses or meaningful wins is a completely different ballgame. So we'll see if the Hurt Syndicate costs him or vice versa in all of this. But I'm a fan of the use of MJF so far with all of this. Him winning the gauntlet to eventually hang out with Hangman again to get us back to that point, I think could be a very real possibility and something that would be a very fun program to run back. That would make me happy. Let's keep moving along. Let's keep chatting about this episode of Dynamite. If you haven't already, please leave a thumbs up. We do appreciate it. Helps boost us in the algorithms. And subscribe to our channel. Didn't that sound so fancy?
No fancy. Fancy.
Let's go back a bit. Let's talk this FTR and patriarchy thing, because,
What?
We get a backstage promo with Renee and Christian and Stokely making a reluctant alliance with FTR with this, and they are going to team up tomorrow night. And I don't understand kind of where we're going with this. I gotta say, I really do like the more serious Stokely that we get. And I think like touches of comedy, like when he went to do the handshake situation, I thought that all that stuff is working. Like I like Stokely in this like 80s manager role with a team like FTR. And I feel like FTR not being in the title picture for a little bit has really helped the tag division outside of the title picture. And they needed a breather from it. And I think it's a great way to make them keep feeling important without being in the title picture. I think that's just a really, really good call. I don't understand why the patriarchy is getting mixed up in this. I'm assuming it's for an Adam Copeland return of some sort. But like, they don't care about the tag picture. I don't think Christian's wrestled since like last year. Like I don't understand what this is. Like Nick Wayne has his ROH TV title situation, and I feel like they were doing some good work around that. This feels like a last ditch effort to get them on the card, and they know the tag titles aren't in a great place. So I just don't understand what we're doing with any of this. But make sense of it for me, Ryan. What's going on?
I liked your because it doesn't really make sense. Though I do appreciate, if we go back to the previous segment with Briscoe fighting with MJF, at the end of it, the patriarch, like we had a whole, the Hurt Syndicate comes out, but then, Jet Speed comes out, but then the Patriarchy comes out and takes out the Hurt Syndicate, which I actually think is a nice wrinkle because it's the only time you think the Hurt Syndicate might be vulnerable is if they actually
they need more people to beat them up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think part of it is to get them on the card. I think also part of it is to add a sense of actual threat to the Hurt Syndicate to make it feel like not a foregone conclusion for the match.
And you're right. That's desperately needed. That's desperately needed here. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Joe, what you got for us?
Am I trying to make sense of something?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, okay. Let's try and make sense of something. Let's say FTR gets looped into this tag team, this 3 tag team match, making it a 4 tag team match, since they kind of had that little talk about tag team champions when they're in the backstage segment.
The talkie talk backstage, yeah.
So let's say they get weaved into that whole match, and that costs the Patriarch the win, and maybe FTR wins that match and becomes tag team title. Win the tag team titles. The Patriarchy starts having a falling out thing. The Christian's not leading them like they thought. That's how we get Copeland to come back eventually and get the Edge. Copeland. I know. Wow. I was wanting to Edge and Christian. Copeland and Christian FTR match down the road here.
Let's get that going quickly, but I'm just surprised it got interwoven into this picture. I do feel like you're right in that there was not a credible threat to the Hurt Syndicate, and they need that. I'm intrigued to see what happens with MJF with all of that too. Like who's costing who here? Because something still isn't sitting right. A Cope and Christian reunion is overdue at this point. We're in Toronto in September, baby, or late August. So let's make that happen. Let's get going with all of that. But we're going to keep going with all this. I'll tell you what. I could watch Rick O'Shea and Blake Christian all day. This was fun as hell. I had so much fun watching Blake Christian, who held his own in this. Like, this was fast paced and full of flippy doos. And I actually really liked this because I think we've been getting stuff that's really different from Ricochet, and it was fun to watch him just sort of return to form. But the story here is the interference from the Gates of Agony, which helps Ricochet land the Spirit Gun and Vertigo, I think is what we're calling that combo. And I really like that after all the scouting he did, Ricochet said, you know what I need? 2 bruisers who could beat the fuck out of people. That's fun. And that needs to be a trios program really fast, because the Ops should have been a really fun trios team. The Death Riders with Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta should have been a really fun trios thing. And that's just all been dead in the water. So even if they're just contenders, because I do think with the Ops, like, what a fun combination of guys. And then you have Hook on the periphery of that. If they want to put focus on it and have them retain, I think that's fine. But like, Ricochet's been searching for gold since he showed up in AEW. If this is how he gets it, I'm not mad about it. But you have the Gates of Agony beating down Blake Christian after this. And it also pays off that Ricochet was scouting Blake Christian earlier. So I really do appreciate when they pay attention to things like that. Joe, we'll go to you and then we'll go to Ryan after. Ricochet, weirdly, after having a very, very strong year, doesn't feel super prominent heading into the pay-per-view, but I also think he's such a veteran and he's so reliable. Like, that's kind of fine. Like, if he's just in the Casino Gauntlet and has a good showing, or if he has a thrown together trios program or whatever, like, if he has a big showing at All Out, for example, I think that's great. But like, one thing that's really nice about having an established veteran like this is I don't think he needs like the glory moments. And he's had a really, really hot run since he showed up. What are your thoughts on the match that we got tonight and kind of the lack of Ricochet heading into the pay-per-view?
Match was super fun. They did a really nice job over the last few weeks of really building up Blake Christian and showcasing him more on Dynamite. And it's interesting to have the kind of that heel versus heel dynamic in this match, since Vanilla Baby was working heel for so long. And yeah, it did what it needed to do to establish this new faction with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, and they have a lot of abs between the three of them.
So many abs.
A lot of abs, and I hope the Gates of Agony. I kind of want them to shave their heads, really, in solidarity.
Ooh.
Who's gonna chant bald to them? Come on.
Gates
Bald
of
caps.
bald. Balls of agony. Bald is agony.
Bald.
Sounds like balls of agony.
Balls. Ryan, what did you think of what we got here, and how are you feeling about Ricky O'Shea?
So I think they should wear bald caps. That way, they don't have to get rid of their hair.
It's a nice little turn move too. Like, ha ha ha, we had our hair all along.
Yeah. Plus, also Ricochet would be the guy to make his people wear bald caps. It was a great match. You knew Blake Christian wasn't going to win, but I'm glad they let him show out. He is really good. And yeah, Ricochet putting a trios together, and if they got the trios title, that would be a lot of fun. They really need to rebuild that division. It's amazing. It was so much better before they had titles. I don't know how they screwed that up. But if they can give them the titles, Ricochet could be so cocky as a champion. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, he'll have a good showing in the Casino Gauntlet, and I'm happy he's on a pay-per-view. So
I really...
Sorry. I was going to say...
Go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, we were talking about Ricochet not being prominent into this pay-per-view. He really is kind of that, break glass in case of emergency. He's always going to be reliable and there for you. I was just thinking, like, he's kind of like the bottle of like cumin I have in my cabinet, like where I don't use the spice all the time, but when I want it, but every now and then I'll throw it on there and when I need it, and it's reliable and it tastes good. So it's just you just kind of that spice of life that when you need it.
I feel like you should be using cumin more, to be honest.
I know. I don't use it much.
I was just going to say, I also like the use of Ricochet. Like, he came into AEW, he established himself as something completely different that I think anyone saw coming. He doesn't move like he's in the later stages of his career, but I think it's fair to say he's in the later stages of his career. And Gates of Agony is someone that they know they have value in, that they haven't really done a lot with, especially of recent. So I just like the use of a veteran super over talent with that as well. Like, we should be doing more of that in wrestling all the time, I feel like. So that's what I think of your cumin analogy, but we'll take it. We'll take it. Hey, Samoa Joe defeated Wheeler Yuta, and that ruled. Yuta had every eye gouge, ear bites, flatliners. He threw everything he could at Joe, but Samoa Joe just absolutely fucking rules and wins with the cocaine clutch. Like, he's just one of those guys for me that there's never a time where I'm like, oh, Samoa Joe's out? Okay. Like, how are you not excited to watch Samoa Joe wrestle? Even we're talking about people in the later stages of their career. Like, he's just the fucking best, man. But post-match, Gabe Kidd attacks Samoa Joe, but Shibata and Hobbs make the save. I actually thought this was really fun, and I like the way that Yuta worked with Joe too. Like, I like that he's a heel. He should be using every trick in the book, and that's exactly what Wheeler Yuta did. That makes total sense to me, that this type of heel would attack Joe like that. I loved it. There were some incredible signs tonight. The chat is pointing it out. There was like a which one Wheeler. There were a bunch of really funny signs tonight, but go check social media for them because there were at least 4 that had me like in stitches. Ryan, Samoa Joe rules, yes or yes?
Yes.
Great. Joe? No, all of this is good in supporting the bigger picture with Hangman, right? Like this helped build that out in his anti-death riders, but Samoa Joe just rules. But you can elaborate on the other pieces if you want.
No, I mean he rules, but really where my thoughts are is that when Wheeler Yuta's story with the Death Riders ends, someone needs to forcefully cut his hair and have that be what breaks the hold.
There should be a hair match.
And he's just a totally different person once the hair's cut.
There should be a Ricochet Wheeler Yuta feud, and it's just Ricochet being so mad that Wheeler has so much hair, and he feels like by having the bangs, he's rubbing it in his face. Like it's a sign of disrespect. We've seen hair versus mask matches enough. Hair versus bald. I don't know what happens on the other side, but I need to see it.
Yeah.
Joe, what did you think of your brethren and Joe?
Oh, as a fellow Joe, I have to appreciate another Joe. It's in the Joe code.
It makes sense. You've got a whole chant about it and everything.
Yeah, he represents the Samoas. I have the Asians part, so we're good.
Perfect.
Fun match. We got 2 walkaway spots, which is double the fun. And I like the fact that I always like and appreciate how protected the Coquina clutch is. Like, no matter like who's in the clutch,
nobody's getting out of that shit. Yeah.
No one breaks it. So I always love how protected that finisher is. And with Yuta, I just hope that once all the Death Rider stuff is over, he really needs to do something in singles and get away from being in groups. And no, I don't feel like being in the Death Riders and BCC did a great deal of it for him, other than some exposure. But like, he didn't win anymore. I mean, the title that he won was probably on par with what he would have won before he joined the Death Riders. I don't know. I just felt like he never elevated him quite enough.
I think that's fair. I mean, he gets more reactions than anybody from the Death Riders, but like it didn't enhance like where he is on the card, if that makes sense. Like I don't feel like, oh, he's getting these huge crowd reactions and now he's a main eventer. But Brian Danielson at least could wrestle enough to answer Max Caster's open challenge in street clothes. I feel like if Brian Danielson has any matches left in him and he decides he wants to do this, Wheeler's the dude, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Wheeler breaks away from Mox, he has a real chance of actually using this as a breakout. But I don't know how it's going to go because I don't know if fans are going to want to cheer him. So they might have to have him break away, but in a heel.
It'll be interesting if if the best friends lure him back to being a good guy. I think that could be really fun.
That'd be funny.
Have fun with that. Let's talk of Megan Bayne defeating Tekla, Queen Aminata, and Tay Mello for the number 2 spot in the Women's Casino Gauntlet. Crowd was kind of quiet for this. Tay Mello, she always gives it her all. Like, there were some spots in here where she was trying so hard to get the crowd in it. She's like going nuts on the outside with some stuff, but Bayne hits the awesome bomb on Aminata for the win. We get a backstage later where Tekla is being interviewed by Renee saying, like, you haven't been pinned since you've shown up, even if you didn't get the win. Like, your impact is undeniable. And Queen Aminata comes in like a bat out of hell, which was super fun. And Chris Statlander is watching ringside, which is interesting. So some good title adjacent movement continues in this women's division. You'd love to see that. We'll throw it to Ryan and then ping pong it right over to Joe. What do you think of this? I'm glad to see they're still going out of their way to make Megan Bayne seem important.
So the match itself was a little clusterfuckery. It seemed like they were a little step off tonight, but it wasn't enough to make me not enjoy it. I still enjoyed the match, but it just seemed like not everyone was on the same page at every moment, but that's, I mean, you have 4 wrestlers going at it, like, plus outside people, like, that's where you run the risk of that kind of stuff. I'm with you. I love that Megan Bain hasn't been tossed to the wayside. Tekla is going to be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of personality there, and Queen Amanana is making the most of the opportunity she's been given. So good for her.
Agreed. And she's someone that I think fans feel very connected to. And she's been kind of waffling around 50-50 booking for a little bit, but I think that's okay because she still has a lot of time ahead of her to be a big star. She seems like someone they could heat up whenever they damn well feel like, with the way that woman like presents herself and moves. But I like continuing this feud with Tekla, especially after there was like a little bit of buzz about the way that match ended, and they're making business out of it, whether it was real or not. So God bless them. God bless them. Joe.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think the match itself was in question. I thought Bain was probably going to win that, but Ty, she's been looking really good. Her comeback, she always has a great pump kick. I was a little curious to see what they were going to do with Tekla after this, since I didn't know what the direction was, but thankfully we got that answer. And I like the idea of having this little blood feud with Queen Amanada to give both of them something to do that's not, in the title picture. So good on AEW for more feuds not related to titles.
Agreed.
And yeah, I think it just goes to show again with Penelope and Anna Jay on the outside that like we really need tag team titles. Like bring them.
We do. You know what's funny? I had forgotten about this, but Ruby Soho is someone that I didn't consider in the Casino Gauntlet, but she has so much history with Toni Storm, but a completely different version of Toni Storm, that if she's ready post-pregnancy, she's someone that would be fun. But like there is a tag division brewing, and they need the titles to match it. They need the titles to match it for sure. But let's wrap up here. Let's talk about this Jon Moxley Hangman feud that has devolved into this mega match and this promo that we got earlier in the night with Mox reminding Hangman that while he may have lost at Texas Death before, they were different versions of themselves, and the upcoming war is about attrition. And he says, you better walk the aisle like it's your last time. What I liked about this is last week they alluded to the fact that they'd been in a Texas death match before. This time Jon Moxley just flat out said it. I saw some people being like, why are they acting like he wasn't? But Hangman flat out said, like, that I'm capable of winning one of these things. But I think people skated by it because it wasn't directly referential. But today, Jon Moxley said, yeah, I know you beat me, but I was a different man then. I was younger then. Good fire from Moxley. Like, it's so funny that the Death Riders feel more on track than they have, just like at the right time for him to lose. But that leads into this eventually, not immediately, but later in the episode, we get this 8-man tag that was chaos in the most delicious way possible. There's a part where the Jacksons are just kicking everybody and taking everybody out with super kicks. It was honestly really, really fun. Shibata and Hobbs was a lot of fun. The interaction between Hobbs and Claudio, I was like 7 times a week and twice on Sundays. Like, give me the 8 days a week treatment for that, please. Like, we got some meat chants out of it. And I don't consider Claudio like a meat guy, but he's certainly meaty enough. I want to see that match. But we have a Death Rider's powerbomb to Hobbs through the table, which got a great reaction from the crowd. And Bulldog by Moxley on Shibata for the pin. Right guy took the pin. The funny thing with the Bulldog choke is I actually love that move as a submission, but crowds, I think, just genuinely can't necessarily see when it's happening. So if you don't have it on the scoreboard, like, or the Titantron or whatever you want to call it, I don't think crowds know to react to it because sometimes it just gets really quiet. And I don't think that's like, well, because the Death Riders aren't over. I think they literally can't see it being locked in a lot of times between the ropes on the side that it is facing and your back being turned to the rest of the crowd. It's not like the Coquina Clutch where you are laying sideways and you can see exactly what's going on because Samoa Joe's a big son of a bitch. So it's interesting because I feel like that submission doesn't always have the crowd, but I it's one that I really like. And then post-match, Gabe Kidd attacks again. You have the Bucks trying to suffocate Paige and Ospreay with plastic bags. Marina Shafir's handing them out like she's a chaperone on a field trip. And Swerve arrives on screen, and he's crushing the Young Bucks limo with forklifts. Nana baits them outside. Swerve double stomps both of them off the forklift. Samoa Joe reemerges them. This really fun thing happens where Paige goes to buckshot Claudio. Claudio meets him with the uppercut, and then he's like, fuck you, I'm just hitting you with a regular lariat anyway. And Marina kind of shuffles Mox off in this. This was cheesy as fuck with the forklift stuff. Whether it's wrestling cheesy for you or not is in the eye of the beholder. Not really for me, because I feel like it's gotten so hot as an angle between Mox and Hangman that I wanted the eyes and the focus to be on that. But I will say I love the stakes that are on this EVP and Ospreay Swerve angle, because I think both of them really genuinely affect the product, and I feel like both of them have something to lose, and I don't know who's gonna win, honestly. And I love that they've kept Swerve and Hangman away from each other, even though they're on the same side of things. So there are things that I liked about it, but I was like, man, if even Swerve can't make this look cool, I don't know how I feel about it. Also, it was recorded during the daytime. So when you go outside at 10 o'clock at night and it's broad daylight, I know this was a pre-tape. It kind of killed the vibe for me. But Joe, let's go to you. It's undeniably a bunch of fun in that regard. I just feel like Mox and Hangman has gotten so intense that it kind of took me out of it. How are you feeling about all of the Death Riders through line that we got tonight?
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Moxley promo. There's not a shadow in the building that Moxley doesn't like and won't find to do a promo in. When there's a stairwell, a hallway, wherever there's a shadow. The match itself was fun. It was, like I said, I like to call these the Rick Knox special, where it's just a tornado tag, even though it's supposed to be a regular tag match, but the Bucks are always involved, and you have super kicks and you have shenanigans on the outside going on. So it was what it was. And to your point, I agree. I feel like there were two different parts of this. That we have the serious part of the Heyman Mox, and then you have the Founding Fathers over the top, Young Bucks with Swerve and Ospreay thing going on, which I get maybe why they do the whole let's smash their car trope, because that'll get them. But yeah, I think the saving part of it was when Swerve came out at the end down the aisle and we celebrated Ospreay and others. Heyman just had this dead stare at him, and I thought that was a really interesting, parting shot before the pay-per-view.
He is unbelievable at that aspect of this game. He is so good at that. And that's kind of always, it's funny because this segment was a microcosm of the fun and the friction of this segment. Inside this segment, there are two wolves. There are extremely silly EVPs who have created the ugliest limo you will ever see. And Swerve is cranking it up with a forklift, right? And then you have the extremely serious other side of the coin who are allied with these guys and on the same mission as these guys. And you have that ending sequence of Hangman going for the buckshot, Claudio meeting him with an uppercut, and him just walloping him anyway was so the wrestling side of it. And then the Swerve stuff was dare I say, sports entertainment. Ryan, you are known for being absolutely no fun around these parts. You take things extremely seriously. What was your takeaway from this main event? To their credit, they did the most. I can't say that they didn't put it all out there. They put all of it out there. What did you think?
This is kind of what I expect for the main event for Saturday, even though the main event on Saturday is a singles match. I still pretty much expect this same thing. I mean, it's being requested, so I'm about to say that this was a
Sure
3 out of fun.
Okay.
A lot of fun. The only reason it wasn't 4 out of 4 is because it was expected fun, so it didn't have the surprise nature to it.
Surprise element.
Yeah, but it was a good match and just all over the place. I didn't mind the swerve thing, but I admit that it's cheesy as hell.
It's like when everyone's like, pause suffocating people with your plastic bags because Swerve showed up on the screen in a forklift. I was like, I don't know.
It's extremely 1990s, early 2000s pro wrestling. Do I think it fit? No, but I didn't hate it because sometimes that cheesy stuff makes me smile. Like,
did it fit? But I liked it anyway as a completely reasonable perspective.
I mean, just because I don't know, Swerve's insane and it just worked. But
he is like the only guy that could pull this off at all. I'll say that.
Yes.
Like, that dude has the effortless coolness it takes to do something.
Hangman could too, but Hangman would be at their house knocking down their house.
He would be at their house knocking down their house. And like the other side of this is there's a really just fun dynamic between Swerve and the Young Bucks. Like, they are very different characters, but Swerve is like, I get what you're doing. And I feel like the Young Bucks are like, I get what Swerve's doing. In a working relationship sense, that I think they know how to play at each other's worlds very, very well.
I also think the fact that they are so different is making it work.
Yeah,
because
I'll agree with that.
These 2 personalities, well, 3 personalities technically, these 3 personalities would clash. Like, Swerve's like almost too real to a stubborn point where like he doesn't compromise on who he is, and the Bucks are chameleons where they like do whatever they can to just.
What did you say about me on the internet? Sure. Let me turn it up to 9 million. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So
agreed. Well, that was our go home episode of Dynamite. I think there's a lot to look forward to this weekend, and I'm really, really excited. It feels like the product isn't as great of a place as it's been in years, and I think when you consider how many heavy hitters are on the bench, Orange Cassidy, Jay White, Eddie Kingston, like, I feel like it still could get even better. And that makes me excited. Pro wrestling is a good time at the end of the day. And I feel like they've been building into this one extremely well. Good stuff there. But before we get out of here, I just wish I knew where I could get opinions on wild and wacky cereals before I commit to buying them. You know what I mean? Like, I just wish there was some sort of resource.
I don't know about wild and wacky. I do healthy cereal now, apparently.
Evidently. Joe, where can I get my protein as a vegan?
Well, lots of places if you want to save money, but if you don't want to save money and it's no problem for you, you can always go read about Master Spoon cereal, which I reviewed on my cereal review blog. You can find a link to that in my bios on my social medias @_Asian Joe.
Love that for you. Which flavor did you review? I didn't get to see
It
it
was
yet.
a peanut butter one.
Okay. So can you give the people just a thumbs up or a thumbs down as a trailer to what your blog might say?
Cereal was good. Value was not.
Cereal was good and value was not. Okay. It is very expensive. I can say that. Ryan, if I wanted to read the perspective of history finally through the eyes of a straight white man.
Wow. As his founding fathers intended.
Kidding. Look, I'm not a history gal, but I always read here for history when it comes out because it's very accessible and Ryan actually does a great job with what he's writing about. So I'll let him tell you all about it. But who am I if not being a rascal.
Yeah,
But Ryan,
Ramsey-
where can
You
people
can find
find your
me.
work?
You can find. I'm gonna go back to who you are. You can find me on all our socials at Mark Order Pod, and then you can find my history blog hereforhistory.com @_hereforhistory or @hereforhistory depending on the social. I will have a new one out this month at some point. I just don't know when, and truthfully, I don't even know what it's on yet. So that's probably not a good thing. But I did have one come out a couple weeks ago, so you can read that. But Kate, I got a question for you. Have you besides here? And Fightful Select on Monday, and Fightful on Tuesday, and Fightful Select whenever you and Alex decide on it, and Fightful on Fridays covering SmackDown. Can I see anything you've done recently?
I actually have a blog called Here for the Future, and it's all about just things that I've had visions about that you can check
Kate
out.
Stradamus.
Kate Stradamus, perfect. I am doing things on my own YouTube channel. I did a video earlier today, which I totally meant to release at 9 p.m. Eastern, because that's a great time in the middle of a wrestling show to release video. But it's on 3 things that I feel like need to happen at All In to consider the event a success. I also had one that went up on Monday, which were 3 habits from the Vince McMahon era of creative that I feel like are sneaking their way back into WWE booking after they were eradicated for like 2 years. So bumming me out on that front. But I also talked about the roads in which they've gotten there. So for example, like if I said rematches, I gave examples of why I think they've run back the rematch trope too much, etc., etc. A lot of support on that one. That one's like up to almost 2,000 views we're getting to. So thank you for those of you who have already checked it out. If you haven't, at Miss Kate Fabe on social media, at Miss Kate Fabe on the old YouTubes. Very much appreciated. And stay tuned for my blog, Here for the Present. Here for here.
Kate Stradamus.
That'll wrap it up for us tonight, though. Have a safe and wonderful wrestling weekend. There's so much wrestling on. Assuming if you're listening to this, you're going to be watching some AEW. It should be a blast of a show. If you're going, stay safe, stay hydrated, have fun. But we will see you here next Wednesday on the Mark Order Podcast. Goodbye and good night.
So I do the outro, and then I scroll down and make sure the volume's up, and I hit play.